Hi everyone, maybe a short clip for today. So I was taking a hike on the Appalachian Trail a little bit over lunch. Took about 40 minutes and it was icy as could be here in Pennsylvania, so it was a little treacherous, but I didn't break a hip. But a thought crossed my mind and has been on my mind for a few days here, and I'm wondering if your cybersecurity organization understands the fundamentals of network design, understanding network architecture maps, sort of basic hardening guidelines for the network, really what an indicator of compromise is from a network perspective, and if they really understand how they're supposed to respond to anomalies in your organization. I think if you have a very large organization, you probably have people that specialize in those things, right? You have a SOC, you have a network engineering team, your bases are covered. But I wonder more about small and mid-sized businesses. It doesn't explicitly relate to my last conversation on some of the skills that a CISO needs, but there's some basic skills that I see lacking across the workforce today. I think particularly from an education space, we don't do a good enough job educating students, whether it's in certification classes or in formal secondary education, on networking concepts and truly making sure that folks that are coming into the cybersecurity workforce understand networking. I've posted a few threads out there that the network's the underlying layer where packets flow across the network. So do your cybersecurity staff understand from a foundational perspective what a network looks like? Basic things. Do your staff understand what a public IP address is? Do they understand what a private IP address is? Does your staff understand where to go to understand the footprint of your network in terms of IP address management? If they do know where to go for IP address management, do you have architectural diagrams available or some software platform which highlights how the different IP networks interconnect and how routing works? If your team sees, for instance, that there's an anomaly on an endpoint on 10.10.10.25, how that might impact devices that are in a completely different network segment, say 192.168.20.10, or how traffic flows across your networks that they need to take action and maybe segment a given network. So these are some of the thoughts that I had on my mind while I was walking in the woods. But maybe to add a little bit to build upon my last video, these skills might be ones that a CISO needs to have if they work at a small organization where they need to remain technical. Forget the question about whether small, mid-sized organizations have CISOs. We can get into the whole vCISO argument, whether or not small businesses, mid-sized businesses are outsourcing that knowledge. But I think, a surface level knowledge of these things might come into play even for vendor selection, right? If you're in an organization where you're a CISO or an information security officer responsible for things, but you don't have staff and you need to hire an MSP, for instance, how is your CISO going to hire a managed service provider to handle SOC or cybersecurity related things if they can't convey to that MSP how a network functions? Now, maybe you have an MSP that comes in and understands your network architecture as part of the onboarding process. But I think it's important to understand those fundamentals. And maybe you're lucky enough to be in a situation where you have a network engineering staff, either within the cybersecurity organization or in the IT organization. Maybe you don't. The role of the CISO is really gray. We saw some of that in the discussion on the last video I posted, and it really differs by organization. I think in my personal ideal role, the roles are probably separated, and the CISO's job is to communicate risk to the organization and to the executive leadership team and to the business as a whole. But I'm not sure that this is the case. I'm not even going to say I'm not sure. I'm sure this is not the case in all organizations. I think in some regulated industries, depending on the defined role of the CISO, they're even sort of separated by force in terms of reporting structure, so that the things that they are reporting on, they're quantifying, they're assessing, they're independent, and so forth, at least if they have some form of auditing role within their department. So that's my thought for the day. I think next time I want to talk about the importance of digital literacy, or that's what I've written down in my list of things to talk about. But I think I'm going to take the weekend and focus on my students, and we'll cover that one next week. Is it important that your executives have digital literacy? So stay tuned.